In this time, I'm with the Dr. Pineda and I'm going to make him an interview about agroecology. The first question, Dr. Pineda, is what can you say about the products we can obtain from agroecology?
With agroecological practices, we can obtain many different products because some of the practices that we do in agriculture are also related to ecology. So we can have crops that have been planted, taken under consideration agroecological practices. So we can get animal products, we can get human consumption products, we can get products for different status of the society or different kind of products that we can consume as humans.
The next one is, how do we know that agriculture practices are also ecological?
Okay, as I mentioned before, we can have a crop that is planted, taking under consideration some of the agroecological practices. For example, soil conservation. We know that the soil is deteriorating at a very high rate, and so we can include some agroecological practices such as cover crops or crop residues that are incorporated into the soil for soil conservation practices. Other practices could be, for example, live barriers, for example, plants of high plants or large plants that will avoid the soil erosion. Also, some of the plants that will help create barriers for the soil to be prevented by water erosion. Also, we can also take under consideration some of the plants that will help also to control some of the insects, biological control of insects. Some of the practices that we can include in our crops and consider those practices to be agroecological practices.
The number 3 is, what are the factors that affect agroecology?
Okay, agroecology is, by definition, is the combination of agricultural production practices with ecological practices. For example, some of the factors could be the some of the practices could be the high use of the soil by animals. If we can include some of the ecological practices, could be the planting of grasses that are going to be retaining the soil, that are going to be retaining the water that we receive from rainfall, or also the weed control with some of the cultural practices that are very famous. For example, cover crops. If we have some cover crops that will produce enough shade to eliminate some of the weeds that are on the crops, we are also taking under consideration some of the ecology benefits that we can take under consideration for the benefit of some of the crops.
The next one is, what are the benefits that agroecology give to the farmers?
Okay, usually the contamination of the waters or the contamination of the soil, contamination of the environment, some of the bad agricultural practices that had been used by farmers without regard to the effect on the environment. If we are conscious of those practices and instead we use pesticides that are green tagged, in other words, that are friendly to the environment, that will be some of the benefits that the farmer will receive. Some of the other benefits is that the conservation of water that is now very scarce, or lack of water in different region of food production, some of the practices to harvest that water and retain that water, some of the benefits that the agroecological activities or agroecological practices will bring to the farmers.